Let me resume
What we
recording.
said, what we said, so.
Okay, so this is March 4th, 5 o'clock, a meeting of the Capital Subcommittee, the AC. And our first quick order of business is going to vote to authorize me as the chair of the committee, the subcommittee, the ability to approve the minutes
And submit them.
and submit them. So will someone move that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, Harry, you want to second it?
I'll second it, but if we did it after July, I think we're good for a year.
That's all right. We can be double sure.
I have no idea. So, all right. So Pam, you want to vote first?
Yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
I vote yes, and I think I've lost Anthony.
No, I'm
Maybe-
here.
Oh, you're here. Anthony, how do you vote?
I vote yes, believe it or not.
All right, great. All right, so first up now that it's 5:01 is and I lost him now. Where did the chief go? Ah, there he is. Chief Sullivan, who's going to talk about the CIP allotment for this coming year for the fire department. Chief, do you need to be made a co-host, or are you just going to speak?
No, if you could let me share my screen. I've got an update on the renovations budget, and I think Melissa has some slides that, or at least some information on the capital for apparatus.
Okay, I'm making you both co-hosts. So you should be able to share your screen now, Chief.
Okay. I'm not sure. Let's see here. Are you seeing anything yet?
Yes.
A financial summary, that's what we,
Okay, you see the financial summary?
it
We
just went
did.
away though.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
hold
gone.
Hold on one second. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this I got from Trent, who is our project manager just today. So these are the most updated numbers. And I know you're very interested in where we are in the budget. So if you look down the left-hand side, obviously see the fire stations in order. They're not in order of the way that we're doing it, but 4 is first and 1 is the next project, and then the other 3 are in the correct order. You see the original cost estimates, which we had for the original $65 million initial appropriation of funds. And you see the actual costs that we have incurred so far for the projects. Both Fire Station 1 and 4 were costed out and bid together. So those are relatively hard costs. Those are real projections in terms of how much money we intend to expend for those 2 fire stations. The $58,000 that you see with regard to Station 5 was for the feasibility study that the Buildings Commission requested. And you can see the delta on the next column. So even though GGD in their original estimate had Station 1 coming in at 11.7, the actual cost, so to this point, without any we haven't started it yet, and I'll get into that in just a second, but there's a $3 million delta there, and then Fire Station 7 came in almost $500,000 under what it was originally projected. So at this time, we're doing pretty good. I can show you some of the work that's being done here. This is from several weeks ago, so these are pretty older slides. I guess it's not loaded for you there. I apologize for that. But anyway, I was hoping to be able to show you some of these slides here, but they're not loading too well. So there has been some added costs for Station 4 so far, but they're less than $200,000 for the added costs of the things that were not anticipated. So anyway, that's where we are at this point. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the fire station projects.
So Chief, if I understand it correctly, these are not under budget, they're just not finished yet.
So the Station 1 and Station 4 are under budget for the projected costs and then the bid costs. So we don't expect, obviously, any cost overruns for Station 1 anywhere near $3 million. So far, what we have for cost overruns for Station 4, and it's a month away from being complete, or I should say, the end of April, so 2 months at this point from being completed. We're actually putting in fixtures and cabinets and so on and so forth. So we're not anticipating any, structural overruns for anything there. And the number for that is $200,000. These are the actual costs, so that $200,000 is already part of that $7,041,000. So we're still $500,000. In the green as far as, or in the black, if you will, for Station 4, and it's starting to get to the phase where we're wrapping up, the project itself. Station 1, is the bid costs came in $3 million less. So if you just look at the difference between 11.7 and 8.5, that's a substantial difference in the projected cost and the actual cost. So we may see some, and the Buildings Commission has been concerned about the projected cost for Station 5 for the complete rebuild of Station 5. We're going to see some savings from Station 1 that can be projected over to Station 5 for the cost, the final cost of that. We have a meeting at the end of the month with some projections due by the cost estimators for that. There's 3 different cost estimations that they've required from their feasibility study. One is to just refurbish Station 5, which doesn't meet the project program. The other is to tear down part of Station 5 and build onto the original building. And the last projection is the rebuild, which was anticipated in the first place. So that's where we stand.
Station 5 is Babcock Street, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Chief, question for you and then a question for Melissa. So am I understanding correctly that the extra costs are not, they're within the project contingency because you're actually lower than you expected to be?
At this point, that is correct, yes.
Okay. And Melissa, is there anything that prevents us from, the way we borrowed the money or the way that there was I guess, I don't know if there wasn't a vote for this one, but is there anything that prevents us from shifting money from one station to the other?
No, so the appropriation allows, it's for all of the station renovations. So, and we are kind of borrowing as we go. So, we'll know where we are towards the end and how much we have left in the authorization. So, but it allows for if he goes over on one and under it on another, that's okay. It's the project itself is a $65 million budget.
Great. And Chief, I would love to, if it's possible, to have a site visit to the one that is being completed and see what it looks like.
We plan to have it available to do that. At this point, there's still a lot of subcontractors there, and it's there's a lot going on there. But prior to us taking full ownership of it, we will have a period for the advisory committee and the firefighters to get in there and see, along with the select board, to see the finished product.
Great, thank you.
Can you just remind us, Chief, what's up next after 1 and 4?
We go directly to 5.
Directly to 5.
Can
Okay,
you
great.
tell us which one is on Route 9?
So, well, there's 2 of them on Route 9, and they're both
Oh, right.
1 and 4. So the one that is at Chestnut Hill at Reservoir and Boylston is Station 4. That's the one that's under construction now. And we're on time and we're under budget, which is always a good thing. There were some things that, popped up, and, we had some significant cracks in the floor between the first floor and the second floor that my phone still thinks I'm driving. Those were filled and epoxied and pressure epoxied and that was mitigated. What's called the separation tank outside, which separates the oil from the floor drains so that it doesn't get into the environment through the sewage system, had to be redone. That wasn't anticipated, and that was an additional cost. And so there's these things always come up in projects, those unanticipated events, but they were well within the contingency.
Great. So if there aren't any more questions.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Michael. Yeah.
Okay. So, Chief, sorry, I might have missed it, but why was there such good news? Why was Station 1 come way under budget like that?
I don't know exactly, Michael. I think that the original projections, especially for the cost of the electrification, were inflated beyond what the actual costs. I think the original estimate anticipated geothermal as the preferred type of electrification project, or in the HVAC system, but there just isn't the room to be able to do that on that site. So we're going to use a lesser expensive energy solution, but it's still going to be all electric.
Thank you.
Michael, I'm going to be facetious. It's only more expensive when we're building a school.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had one last question, which was for Station 5. Are we still doing, so if we're rebuilding, are we swapping the site? Has that been out of the question with the John parking lot?
We're not anticipating swapping the site. No, we would be using the Babcock parking lot for temporary housing of Engine 5 for the time that the project would be underway. But all of the plans are being done on site at 49 Babcock.
So the temporary building would be a tent structure that is included in the project?
It is included in the project. The temporary structure was anticipated from the beginning, and that was in the estimate of the project. So it would be a tent structure for the actual apparatus itself, but the living quarters would be more like a large trailer, construction trailers.
Right. Cambridge
Cambridge actually has one that we can borrow, so we're going to potentially save some money because they've done projects over there, and instead of as is the Cambridge way, instead of actually renting them, they just bought it, and so they have it over there, and they'd be willing to share it with us if the schedule works out right.
That's excellent.
What a good neighbor. Okay, so the chief has a hard stop at 5:30, so let's to the only thing in this year's CIP, which is the fire truck rehab. And just to remind everyone, we'll vote on this, and the chief will present it when he presents in front of the full AC, but the full AC will not vote on it. So we'll make a recommendation, but the full AC is going to wait and vote on the CIP in its entirety. So chief, you want to?
So I don't know if Melissa can bring up the spreadsheet or not, but this year we don't anticipate actually buying a new truck until fiscal 31. We have a series of rehabs that are underway right now. The rehab for this fiscal year is the 125,000 that you see in FY25 has been a placeholder for our
That's Rescue 1.
the Rescue One, but we have not pulled the trigger on that because we've been holding on that borrowing. The Rescue is in good shape, and it never was in the CIP. We put it in the CIP about what, Melissa, 5 years ago, but we just keep pushing it. We keep holding it in case we need to do it. But our mechanic has thoroughly gone through that truck and has given us the green light that it does not require that extensive a rehab. It is a spare apparatus that we use only sporadically during the year. So the expense of this kind of a rehab doesn't quite make sense. So that's kind of a placeholder. We're not borrowing that money, at least at this point.
And what about the 375 for fiscal year 26? Do you have money left over there? Are you going to spend it all?
Yeah, we're gonna, well, I don't know that we'll spend it all. We are in the process of 2 rehabs right now from fiscal 25 and 26, engine 3 and engine 5. We took possession of engine 1 and 4 the previous year. So 4 out of 5 of our engines are in either brand new or in rehab right this minute. The engine 3 is the one that is first up, and that will be going through its more extensive rehabilitation over the next few months, which is to go through the motor from one end to the other, and then do whatever needs to be done in terms of the shell or the chassis, whether it needs to be repainted or some areas need to be sanded down and refurbished for that. So we anticipate that we're going to spend a good deal of it, but not necessarily all of it.
And Melissa, just to clarify, the funds that aren't spent in these categories roll over. They stay in those accounts. So if we have overages in outer years, is that correct?
So essentially, they'll stay in the account until they're acted upon by either the comptroller or the town meeting. So if the chief said to the comptroller, I'm done with this account, you can close it, the comptroller can close it. But Article 4 is also there in case town meeting decides that they want to close it. So those are the 2 mechanisms.
So do you know what the actual balance is in that account right now?
I can look that up. I can give you that in just a minute. I'd have to run a munis report.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting. I'm not suggesting we take money away from it, but I think it's nice to know how much we have in our battle chest for various uses.
Yeah,
I guess-
I'll run it anyway because I need to run it to give the departments the exercise for Article 4. So I'll just send you a K report
Okay.
that shows the
I guess the
status of
question-
voting.
The question would be, is it different from closing than from taking money out of it?
So there are if you needed to redirect it to another CIP account, you can do that through the budget. There's language that we could use. When you have an appropriation vote, you have to cite the funding source. So if you are citing the funding source, you'd have to reference the old town meeting article and say, and use funds from item number 13 at the annual town meeting of 2022. And then that would be how you could redirect funds from that account into a different CIP account that's listed on the warrant.
And that leaves the accounts still open so that you can put more money into it later.
Well, a lot of the departments have continuing appropriations so that they, those balances tend to accrue.
Okay, great.
So just for context, though, I'd be remiss if I wasn't, advocating on my behalf to say that, these rehabs have to be strategically timed. So even though there's, could be a significant amount of money left in the account, it doesn't mean that we're not anticipating using it because of the way that our apparatus run 24/7, 365. There's oftentimes we have to delay putting one of these pieces that are scheduled for rehab into the queue because we don't have a spare available to us to be able to run that company on. And so it stays in service until we have a spare available to be able to to take it out of service for a significant period of time. So even though there's money left in there, we have not really started significantly on engine 5, which was last year's CIP. We're really just getting into the meat and potatoes of engine 3 at this point, which was 2 years ago. So just a word of caution there.
I don't think any of us have a real desire to be reallocating money. It's just
I
wasn't
got you.
clear to us in the past that these funds.
I got you. I just want to make sure you understand the context of how it gets spent.
Now,
Appreciate it.
I had another question about vehicles or apparatus and scheduling and availability and everything. Right now, as you know, the Chestnut Hill West discussion is happening, and the select board member who's leading the effort has touted that a new apparatus will be part of the public benefit of this project that they're suggesting at Chestnut Hill. And so I had two questions. One of them is, and I don't know if part of this is for Melissa and part of this is for you, Chief. When they're talking about the new apparatus, does that mean that we would need to increase the staffing to staff it, or does it mean that it takes over for something else? Like, how does it fit in the puzzle of what we have, apparatus versus staff? And the second question would be, how does it fit in the budget, I guess, with other things that we have? I mean, does it, again, delay things or advance things? Do we have a building for it, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, Melissa, if you want, I'll take the first part of that question. So the discussions that were brought to me with regard to this in that project were that should that project go forward in the size and scope of which it had been originally advocated, the 14-story building, the 12-story building, and all of the added folks that would be living in South Brookline, on top of the expansion of Hancock Village, on top of the new building at 1180 Boylston, would that precipitate at this point that the fire department would advocate for an additional ladder in South Brookline? So the answer to that is yes. We have, and I've been pretty steady on this for the last 5 to 6 years to say that, we are in a position where we're going to be looking to do something with a ladder truck in South Brookline at some point. The runs for the department have increased by 250 to 400 runs per year. Just since I've been here in the 8 years, we've gone from 7,000, a little over 7,000 calls a year to over 10,000 calls a year. So exponentially, at some point, the system becomes taxed. One of the critical points for us is our ladder coverage for the town. You currently have a ladder at Brookline Village and a ladder at Babcock Street, both of which stations are obviously in the north end of the town. So that leaves the south end of the town, a long way from ladder coverage. So the anticipated rehab of Station 4, obviously smack dab in the middle right there at Chestnut Hill, has always been that station would be redone because it used to have a ladder in it many years ago, decades ago, would be reconfigured so that it would be able to accommodate both a ladder and an engine. And that is what is happening right now. For the next year and a half, and potentially for the next 4 years, ladder 2 from the village is going to be relocated up to Station 4. So because that's where we have the availability of space to put it. That has always been in the plan, and so that kind of puts it into context that there's going to be a ladder there for the next at least year and a half. And then depending on what happens with Station 5, how long that takes. So that could potentially be a two-year project. So for the next 3.5 years, there's going to be a ladder in South Brookline. So the question was, if this project would go through and we were to put ladder 2 back in its place down at the village, would we still require a ladder in South Brookline? The answer to that is yes. They were anticipating some negotiations with the Chestnut Hill folks to be able the project folks to be able to get them to pay for the vehicle itself. So we have the station. They would pay for the upfront costs for one time only. They would pay for a ladder truck, which is approximately $2+ million at this point. It is also a 2-year build out. So from the time that we pull the trigger on the contract to the time that we actually get it is 2 years out. That would require, if that was to happen, us to add additional personnel, 20 more firefighters to the budget to be able to staff that additional ladder in South Brookline. That number, I would leave to Melissa and the impact on the budget of that number. The bare facts right now for all of us, and we've been talking about this and kind of running around the edges of this for a long time. If the override in May does not pass, we'd be looking at losing a company, not adding a company somewhere down the line. So we would be looking at kind of a subtraction for addition sometime down the line, and that just doesn't really make much sense at this point. So yes, it would be nice to get somebody else to pay for your apparatus because you've got the leverage to be able to do that. But there are significant long-term costs to the town for the personnel that it would take to staff that piece of apparatus.
So
Right.
there's a chance that the apparatus would be sitting in the garage somewhere
I
until it
mean,
can be staffed.
we'd use it, I mean, we'd use it because we're constantly in need of spare apparatus. So, we'd use it. It just would not be staffed.
So Melissa, once a agreement is reached to rezone this and we get the money to pay for a new ladder, doesn't that automatically almost trigger an upward assessment and an increase in the property taxes? And what are the property taxes that we're anticipating if this thing gets built out? I'm assuming, where I'm going is, I'm assuming that there'll be enough generated in property taxes to cover, maybe not, whatever you need, the 20 extra people.
Yeah, so right now our current estimate is around $2.8 million for an additional company. So, I think it really depends on, there's a lot of factors that are still kind of need to kind of play out before we go down that road. I think, it requires that this ask would need to go in front of town meeting as well. And I think it's also the timing of the development, when that might happen. There's still a lot of uncertainty here. So,
But am I right in that the assessment for the property will increase if we pass the zoning changes? That
Yes,
increases
once
value to the property.
once all the phases of the project are complete, there's an estimated out there that it could be
That's not
6
what I'm
million.
asking, though. I'm asking, as soon as the zoning is approved, the value of the
No.
land is increased.
No, because it's commercial. So it's the now I this is I believe how it works is that it's the value of the business or the real estate on it. So the potential value doesn't increase the value of the site. Is that correct, Melissa?
I would want the chief assessor to weigh in
Yeah,
on.
that doesn't sound right to me.
I know it doesn't sound right, but that's
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've asked this question before, and that's sort of the results I get
Okay.
because you're valuing what's there for residential. You're valuing what's there, not what could possibly be there. And when it's commercial, you're valuing the leases, the value of the leases and
Oh,
everything.
okay, all right, we'll talk about it some
Yeah.
other time.
The only other one thing I would add, Carol, is that we would, in the process, if we were to go down this road and looking for staffing, we would seek a safer grant from the federal government to cover some of our costs to the startup of this. So potentially, if we were successful and the federal government is still giving safer grants, which, thankfully right now, even with this administration, they are. That safer grant would cover 75% of the personnel costs for those 20 firefighters for the first 2 years. Then it would flip on the third year to 25%, and then on the fourth year it would be gone altogether. So the town, if we were successful to get a safer grant, would have some time to establish this cost within its budget.
Got it, okay. So are there any other questions on the fire trucks before we lose the chief?
I've got a little bit of time, so yeah.
Okay, I was thinking 5:30 you turned into a, okay.
No.
So we're voting the 125,000, but there's no plan to actually use the 125,000 yet at this point because the truck doesn't actually, as we speak, need a rehab.
As far as I'm concerned, yes, that's true.
Okay.
So it'll be there for use whenever that need arises. Even if it's unanticipated in the next 7 months or something. Okay, would someone like to move that, please?
I will move the 125,000 for FY 27 for rehab of rescue number 1.
Let's see, do we want to specify that it's rescue number 1, or do we want to just keep it as fire apparatus rehab?
You could specify it. We usually do in the appropriation language.
Okay, thank you. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So Harry,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
John Doggett,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so it's unanimous. All right, thank you very much, Chief.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Let's see, is Chief? I don't think,
You have David Pilgrim here from the police department. I think he's here to talk about the radio system.
oh, okay, great. David?
Or Liz Scott might be able to help out too.
Hi, everybody. Sorry.
Whoever would like to talk about it.
I just texted Chief Pastor and she'll jump on him. She thought she was getting on at 6 o'clock. So she should be jumping on any minute. But yeah, Dave Pilgrim is going to be the person who has the most information on the radios right now.
Okay, so Dave, do you need to show anything, or are you just gonna talk us through the project?
I think at this point we can just discuss the project right now.
Okay, great.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is David Pilgrim. I am a detective in the police department. I am in charge of the technology for the department. Those of you might know Scott Wilder. I have replaced him in the last few years. I learned under him for a while, so that's my role in the department. I also know some of you from my role in the union. But for today, to talk about the radio project, there are a couple of things on the landscape for the police radio system. It was about 5 or so years ago, we did an overhaul of the police radio system. This was also through the CIP. That was to replace an very old radio system that we had. Sorry, speaking of radios, let me turn my radio down. That was to replace a very old radio system we had in place at the time for both the police department and the fire department. We digitalized our radio system for both and built out several additional radio sites. This project is a little bit of expanding on that, but also helping us with interoperability in the region. So recently, you may have seen on the news over the last year or so, the Boston Police Department encrypted their radio system. What this means is at this time, our officers on the street have no access to listening, scanning, being apprised of what is going on in the surrounding area of the Boston Police Department, because we are surrounded, obviously, on three sides by Boston. There is a cost to enable our existing radios, the encryption capability. We've talked to Boston Police Department. They have no problem giving us the license key itself to allow us to communicate or to hear their radio system, but there is a cost to that agency. That cost is about $1,000 per radio. We have approximately 175 radios in our fleet, both portable radios that officers carry on their persons, as well as radios in cruisers. Additionally, with that, there is an additional project going on in the state called the Comier's Radio Project, where the state is redoing the entire radio system in the Commonwealth. What this means for us is there is an expected cost to upgrade the software component of the radio product that we upgraded in the last 5 years or so. This is simply to allow the two systems to talk to each other. Obviously, we have a lot of interoperability, whether it's the Marathon, our SRT team, our bicycle unit, where they are going to different places in the Commonwealth, and being able to communicate on the Commonwealth core is, integral to our operations. That's the main background of the project.
Okay, and is it one and done, this $1,000, or is it a reoccurring fee that you're gonna have to pay?
It would be a one and done. Once we touch the radios a couple of times, get the programming done, that's it for this time. Obviously, there could be other upgrades down the line for the radios, but for this specific project, that would be it.
And then assuming a physical radio breaks and you have to replace it, for that replacement unit, do you have to pay the $1,000, or is it transferable from the broken unit to the new unit?
So I actually should have mentioned that the radios that we've purchased since about 2023, we've already been doing this for all of those radios. That's why it's not every single radio in our fleet, but any radio we purchase from here on out, that's included in the initial upfront cost.
Okay, and what is the cost then for the of the 195,000? What's the cost for the state and what's the cost for the city?
Unfortunately, so the state has been doing a full radio build out, kind of like what we did 5 years ago. They are taking on the infrastructure for their build out, as well as all the software for them. However, every single municipality that ever uses certain radio channels, like we use, it's called Bayburn, and a few other radio channels in the Commonwealth, any city or municipality, which is all the UASC communities as well, have to take on the burden of the cost to upgrade themselves. So the state is paying for some of it. However, they're not paying for any use by the cities or towns.
So do you know how much that is that we're paying?
Unfortunately, we don't have a quote yet. We were just informed in this previous January, so 2 months ago, our Motorola rep informed us that we would need a software upgrade at a minimum. So originally, the entire 195 was anticipated to go towards the encryption project, but ideally, we could kind of split between the two.
I see. Any other questions besides mine?
Yes.
Go, Harry.
Thanks, Carlos. I'm curious about this encryption thing, because the write-up says that Boston went ahead and did this despite the fact that everybody who worked with Boston said, please don't do this. So are there other cities and towns surrounding Boston that are in our position right now where they cannot communicate with Boston?
There
Yes.
definitely are. Sorry, Chief, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry for being late. I think every other question, Detective Pilgrim is more qualified to answer, but I can say with certainty that in speaking with other chiefs, it's a pain point for all of us. And people are scrambling right now to figure out how to address, specifically my fellow Norfolk County chiefs in Dedham and Milton and the municipalities that directly border Boston. I don't want to say panic because we're not allowed to say that we're panicking, but it's a shared pain point.
So I understand it's a pain point. What if we simply said to Boston, saw it off, and we're not doing it?
So I don't think Boston feels the impact of that. It's our department that feels the impact. And for a most recent example, if Dave hasn't mentioned it, we had a call that we were asked for mutual aid to respond to UMass Boston when they thought they had an active shooter situation. And we went down there and our SRT officers couldn't communicate with anybody except for by cell phone.
Okay,
So
so
operationally and safety wise, I respect your stance, but it hurts us much more than it hurts them.
well, actually, it's not my stance, but it hurts us more than it hurts them is where I was really trying to get on this. I mean, I'd really like to stick it to them. But I was just curious, what is Cambridge, what is Winthrop, what is Milton, what is Everett, all the surrounding towns, if they're in our position and they're going to have to eventually give in if they wish to communicate with the city of Boston, then yeah, we might as well, I suppose, go ahead and do it. It's just um, uh, a part of me would like to get back at them in some way, shape, manner, or form, but that may not be possible.
I respect it.
Thank you.
Can I just get a point of clarification? Once we get the key and unlock it, say you're on your radio talking to Boston, but people from, I don't know, Newton are also there and they haven't paid for the key yet. Are they going to be able to hear, or do you have to broadcast the same information twice over two different channels?
In that situation, we would have to broadcast it twice on two different channels. I should have clarified earlier. For the most part, what this key will allow us to do is our officers aren't typically necessarily communicating back and forth in real time with Boston over the radio. However, it allows us to listen to their channels. So, we have D14, which is Brighton, which borders our north side. So if there's what's called a bank robbery at the corner of Harvard and Com Ave, our officers might hear on the radio before our dispatch gets it from Boston Dispatch that a suspect is fleeing into Brookline.
All right, I know there were other questions.
Yes. So does that mean that our communications in Brookline are going to be encrypted?
We have no plans to encrypt our police channel 1 at this time. So it would simply allow us to listen to encrypted communication, but it would not encrypt our communication.
Okay. And is the reason why they're encrypting is so that you can't use scanners and therefore maybe increasing the security of the communications, or is there a different reason?
That's definitely a part of it. However, they've also had a lot of misplaced, stolen, rogue radios where they've had incidents of someone on their police channel broadcasting something like an officer is in trouble.
I see.
Obviously causes a lot of issues and a lot of dangerous situations from that.
Yeah, I believe in Europe, communications have been encrypted for a while because of scanners, but it's an interesting conversation, I think. If we encrypted our communications, I think Sam Mintz would have to find another way of writing the news.
So it is a suggested practice to have at least one encrypted channel, specifically if we are, querying an individual. We're getting social security numbers, a lot of personal identifiable information. So there are arguments for it, but there's also, clear reasons why you want the transparency of not having it encrypted.
Thank you.
All right, so if there aren't any other questions, we can proceed to a vote.
Carol, I will move 195,000 in the CIP for FY27 for police radio system upgrades.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, so let's see, we'll start with Anthony,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
and I vote yes. I think that's everyone. All right, great. Thank you all for coming. David, Chief Pastor, and Elizabeth, I guess, was the other person that was here. The next thing on the agenda, though it wasn't listed till 6, is the wayfinding phase 2. I saw Meredith here. Ah, great. Meredith, do you need the ability to share your screen, you or Jessica?
Nope, just we have a very brief sort of verbal update and presentation.
Okay.
Oh, you're muted.
Why don't you introduce yourself for those people that don't know you? Sorry.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you to the subcommittee for giving us the opportunity to speak about our CIP proposal for some wayfinding funding. I'm Meredith Mooney, Economic Development Director. I'm here tonight with Jessica Drouoy, Senior Economic Development Planner. And our request for your consideration as part of the CIP is $100,000 for wayfinding planning and/or implementation in FY27. And this request was motivated by sort of overlapping conclusions that we've seen over the past several years in various studies related to our commercial areas. So as Carol will recall, because she was part of this process back in 2020, 2021, the town participated in the state's local rapid recovery program, which was a statewide initiative that was supposed to help cities and towns develop strategies for, how to support COVID recovery for the small business community and their commercial areas post-COVID. And it ended up being sort of a very comprehensive set of recommendations and partially developed project ideas that spoke directly to a lot of the feedback that we got directly from the business community and the broader Brookline community that we engaged as part of the rapid recovery engagement work. And sort of the key recommendations were informed by the Economic Development Advisory Board as well as the small business development community. And wayfinding was absolutely a top recommendation included in the scope of those recommendations. Over the past several years with the town's ARPA funding, we've been in the fortunate position of being able to implement a lot of those rapid recovery priority projects. And we have been applying for grants at the state level to advance the additional projects that we didn't receive ARPA funds for. And wayfinding is one of those initiatives. So in addition to kind of the conclusions from the rapid recovery plan, with our ARPA funding, we were able to advance the Coolidge Corner parking study to get a better understanding of the parking system in Coolidge Corner and if there were ways to optimize it. And one of the key recommendations that emerged from that parking study was also to improve the quality and extent of wayfinding throughout Coolidge Corner. And a lot of those recommendations are applicable to all of Brookline's commercial areas. And then third, more recently in the Center Street Lot Study Committee, where we're doing sort of this exploratory process and visioning work for potential redesign of the Center Street lots. That committee, in their final recommendations, also sort of tied back to the Coolidge Corner parking study and the wayfinding recommendations. The Economic Development Division, I think one of internally at Town Hall, our partner divisions that we work most closely with would be DPW's Transportation Engineering Division. We meet with them on a bi-weekly basis. We're in communication with them on a weekly basis regarding a whole host of projects that we're working on, in addition to just being responsive to inquiries or issues that come up that we hear about from the small business community. And we talk a lot about, problems and issues that we're encountering that, additional wayfinding that's both, functional in terms of better parking, and then also in terms of kind of placemaking commercial area vibrancy, sort of more of like the tourism side of a wayfinding initiative are discussed. So all of those factors combined are what led to this $100,000 request, which we would ideally like to be able to use for implementation in the wayfinding development process, there's sort of the planning phase and then there's the implementation phase. So the planning phase is, you're mapping out and identifying, what the needs are and sort of the scope of the wayfinding needed for a particular area. And then the implementation is the actual installation of that wayfinding infrastructure. So through the state, there's the state's one-stop application process. It's sort of the central portal where you can apply for various grants. And so we did this past cycle apply for a wayfinding grant for, I think it was Coolidge Corner and Brookline Village to help with the planning work. We did not receive it this grant funding cycle, but we're intending to move forward with that or submit another application again in the next round of funding. We do have, just because the division has been at half capacity in terms of staffing since October, some additional salary funding that we've moved over to consulting and technical services that we'd like to use a portion of that to advance wayfinding planning for Coolidge Corner, just given sort of the unique situation that we're in for this particular fiscal year. So at a minimum, we would like to be able to use a portion of this $100,000 with the Coolidge Corner wayfinding implementation and apply for the Brookline Village wayfinding planning in the upcoming funding cycle. Another reason strategically why we've asked for the $100,000 value is that in addition to the state's one-stop grant program, there is another grant through the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism that can provide funding for wayfinding implementation, but it's a matching grant that requires a $100,000 matching contribution. So that's sort of the background about the origins of this request.
Right.
Meredith, could you step back? I don't understand what the word wayfinding means.
Thank you.
So I would say existing examples of wayfinding or pieces of wayfinding in Coolidge Corner would be the blue in the Center Street lots in Coolidge Corner, the blue alleyway signs, sort of orienting you, pulling you into Harvard Street from the parking lot. And then another example would be, you might notice there are sort of these maroon and gold leaf themed wayfinding signs at various places throughout town. That would be another example of sort of existing wayfinding infrastructure that is, it's sort of very incomplete and not comprehensive. So I think we're really looking to create a more robust, comprehensive wayfinding system throughout town.
It's literally helping you find your way.
It's signage.
Yes, but the goal is to find your way.
I know my way. I
But
can
for
figure out
those of
how to
you
get
that
to
don't.
Coolidge Corner.
Okay, Michael, you were next.
Thank you. So I have a question about wayfinding too. Does it involve any kiosk type of devices, or is it just a sign?
That is a great question. I know that I think the town is preparing to move forward with, I think, an RFP process regarding the SUFA kiosks and maybe going in a different direction in terms of an informational kiosks in Brookline's commercial areas. I would say it depends. I'm also looking at Jessica, who has some more experience with these types of wayfinding programs in previous positions.
So typically the kiosk could be tied into this process where Christina Metcalf is already working on this as a separate project. I don't think we would include it in this particular instance, but it is something that a lot of the consultants that would work on this kind of development plan would recommend, is having this informational kiosk. A lot of questions we had going through the one-stop process last year when I was presenting for some letters of support to various boards and committees was why we're doing these physical signs when there's so much more need for the internet and the web-based options, which is something that we would also be looking at to tie into. With the parking studies, one of the big things is parking maps to understand where you can go to park. That's not necessarily just the Center Street lot or the town lot, something that's a little bit more off the beaten path, but will still get you to your destination within 1 or 2 blocks if you're able to walk that distance. So all those things will be incorporated into this, but in this instance, I think the kiosk will be separate.
So just a follow-up question. So how is it any different than a sign? I think that question was asked before. If I'm in my car and I want to find a spot to park, what would I look for? What would appear to me to help me? Would it be a sign or like parking?
Yep, it would be a sign. So we already have some of those blue and white P signs that are standard for those kind of wayfinding signs for the parking. In this case, what you'd be looking at is different signs that say municipal location, so pointing towards the fire station, police station, the town hall, and from various locations. So the second that you cross into Brookline, whether it's public transit, walking, biking, or via just a car, there'll be signs that say, if you want to go to these locations, take this turn. So right now there's a couple of them that are different in terms of design. When you're going to like the Cypress Street intersection, heading towards Brookline Village, coming down Route 9, you see ones that say Goddard House or the hospital signs. It'd be combining those to be more consistent in terms of incorporating the town branding, making it so that people know exactly what to look for. So it'd be a signature design that people will know this is what you need to look at to know where you're going. So you'll have different color blocks for the different types of locations. So municipal locations, hospital locations, different landmarks like Olmsted and Lars Anderson, those kind of locations, as well as playgrounds and parks as well.
Thank
So-
you. So just as a final question, why does it cost $100,000? I mean, what goes into that item?
I think it's something just to emphasize, and sort of now I understand the questions about sign versus wayfinding. So it's not just like identifying what kinds of signs we would need to develop. It's sort of putting those signage requirements within a broader communications plan about how you navigate through the town, and making sure that that signage is coordinated.
And just why does it cost $100,000 for signs? What is the money?
Well, so there's the implementation, which would be sort of the manufacturing and then the installation of the sign. So there's that set of expenses. And then, the planning work, it's really taking an inventory of existing signage in town, seeing if there are gaps in terms of what's being communicated. It's the planning process and evaluating what's there and what's needed.
Thank you.
So Meredith, just to follow up on that, do you have a sense of what portion of the money would be used for planning and what portion would actually be used for the purchase and installation of signage at this point?
So the planning, we would anticipate we're sort of using the state's one-stop grant funding amount as our touchstone for this reference, but they provide $30,000 for wayfinding planning, and that typically includes sort of a commercial district the size of Coolidge Corner. So
Okay.
we're assuming Coolidge Corner, Brookline Village would be in the neighborhood of 30,000. And then the implementation piece will probably vary based on the needs of each of those districts and the extent of the signage required.
Okay, so we could end up spending all of it or only a portion of it.
Yes.
Oh, I'd like to ask a question too.
Well, I think first Carlos. And
No
then-
problem.
Yes. So thank you, Meredith, for that presentation. I'm going to preface my comments with these that so when I was working in a larger firm, I did actually a lot of wayfinding for campuses, and then when I went on my own, that was my specialties, was wayfinding for events, and some of the events were 3 or 4 miles apart. So it's something that I understand very well. I also grew up in Europe, where wayfinding has always been very present in all of Europe. And a great example in the U.S. is actually when you go up to Vermont, you will see they have a way of sort of on the roads, they have a way of advertising the different inns and hotels that are down these streets because everything is so rural. Now, unfortunately, the examples that we have in Brookline are terrible. I mean, the one that was done with the maroon and gold colors, first of all, the size is too small. The placement doesn't make any sense because you have a tiny font on a tiny sign on a moving road like Route 9 or Beacon Street. There's no contrast between the two colors, and it has little arrows. I mean, there's one on Newton Street where it just doesn't work. And I don't know how we got that through. That should have been stopped when they saw the design. It's a very nice graphic design, but it's not a very good wayfinding sign because it really does not work. The problem with wayfinding is that it's a very expensive project because you're trying to gather a lot of information and sort of put it in a comprehensive way. It's also very difficult to maintain because things change. So as soon as you have all the signage and all that, if there's a change in parking or whatever it is, you have to update that. And you can see that in mall, like if you go to the street, at the Chestnut Hill, they had a very nice wayfinding system, which they had to scrap because every time something changed, they had to reprint it and all that. So that's, and I know that in our case it would be different, but I think our community. Well, first, also, in order to work, it takes a lot of space. And there's a lot of clutter already on our streets. I know that, for example, Boston one time, in order to clean up the clutter on their streets, decided to do a comprehensive study of their signage, parking signage, and parking payment signage, and all that, and snow alert. I mean, snow ban, and all the information that you have on the streets over there about parking, snow, tollway, street cleaning, all that stuff. And they combined, 7 or 5 signs that they would have on the poles into 2 or 1. And it was a very clever way of doing it. It was an enormous cost because they had to replace everything in town. But they don't really, Boston doesn't really have a wayfinding system. Do you know where the police stations or the fire stations or Newbury Street is, or Copley Square? I mean, there's nothing really telling people where to go other than the typical street sign with directions, which is meant more for street direction, for driving directions than anything else. So I'm looking at the $24 million override that is coming up, and I'm looking at the capital budget, and I'm looking at the schools not giving enough money to wash the windows for the $500 million or $750 million that we spent on the schools. And I actually prefer that this money would go to the building department's maintenance of schools for the time being, because I think that's in dire needs. If you go to the new building for the 9th grade, the lights are all out, the shades aren't working, the windows aren't being cleaned, and because they couldn't change the lights on the entrance, the big overhang entrance, they ended up putting these Home Depot lights on the walls that they can reach to. So I have to vote no on this one, because I just don't think it's the right time for what it. In order to make this work, it's really a lot more expensive. It's a lot more comprehensive, and right now I just don't see it happening. At least the need for it. So I'm sorry, but I can't support this one.
Meredith, did you want to respond before we go on to the next question?
Yeah, I appreciate all of Carlos's comments. And I actually did not realize that wayfinding signage was one of your specialties. So I hope we can continue talking about this as we try to piece together the resources that we would need in order to get something off the ground here in Brookline. And also, I completely take your point and understand, your conclusion about why you feel that there are other more pressing priorities in town. You could also make the argument in the discussions about the override vote and the focus for the Economic Development Division is to preserve the commercial tax base and expand the commercial tax base. And I think part of that tax base preservation strategy is making sure that our small business community is thriving and that our commercial areas are equipped to, get people in and out and keep them here so that they spend more money here. So you could say that, the wayfinding is an important investment in the infrastructure that supports our small business community and an important part of our tax base. So and to your point about it, in order to do it well, it would take a lot of resources. I can totally see that being a valid point. I think we're really moving forward with the thought that this is something that needs to happen for multiple reasons on multiple fronts, and we don't anticipate having a large lump sum of money, so we need to be entrepreneurial, and we're applying for grants, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to successfully leverage this CIP funding as well as part of that broader goal.
Yeah, thank you, Meredith. I'm actually on Beacon Street on Washington Square, standing in my car. I'm looking at the sign that says Washington Square and then Coolidge Corner that way. And I think that's going to have to do, in my opinion, that's going to have to do for now until we are in a much healthier state, because in order for a good wayfinding, and this I think was a question that some of my colleagues had, in order for a good wayfinding system to work, it needs to be very clear and very expansive, because if you want to get people to Coolidge Corner from Cleveland Circle, for example, or from outside, and it ends up being an enormous project that I don't see locally. Even Cambridge just has regular signs that say Harvard Square or Central Square. So again, thank you, but thank you so much for the effort. I just didn't want to sound like negative about it. It's one of my passions, and I just love to see it, but I don't think it's the right time.
So Melissa just wrote in the chat, Carlos, that if we really wanted to move funds, take them from the emergency truck that there isn't an immediate need for, but we can talk. This is exactly why we aren't voting things piecemeal while we're going to do the whole CIP as one. Even though we voted for the truck, we can always change it because we're going to look at the full CIP and decide what things needed to be moved around. Meanwhile, I'm just going to make the point that there's a difference between operating funds, which is what the shortcomings are for the building department, and capital investment money.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, Carla?
Thanks, Pam. Pam, I think Pam had a question, and I was going to ask whether you wanted to hear from subcommittee members first before public.
Pam, do you still have a question?
I do. But I understand. Okay. I'd like to understand what's driving this idea, and how it fits into the priority of all the things we might want to spend our capital budget on. And and signage, I believe, is important. The thing that I find important is to know the name of the street. So when I'm walking along, using my Google Maps, knowing where I'm going, but not exactly what street I'm on, that's helpful, the street signs. But all the rest of this, I think with our modern system, and most people with cell phones, you can get all this information almost more efficiently on your phones. So that would be a concern I have. And then I think that in looking at all the things that we could spend money on in this town, this would be, for me, would be on the frivolous end and not on the really needs to happen mode. So although I appreciate the presentation and the thinking about it, I'm not ready to support it at this time.
Okay, Carla?
Thank you. I'm curious to know for whom these wayfinding signs are being developed. I mean, Harry said sort of tongue in cheek earlier, I know where I am, I know where I'm going. So how many people come to Brookline who don't know their way around? I mean, I'm just thinking when I go to another town or community, if I'm going to, I don't know, a museum or a historic site, I've already checked it out on my phone and I already have the directions. As Pam noted, you can get just about anything out of your cell phone. So who exactly needs these wayfinding signs to find their way around?
So, I mean, Brookline, and I think we saw this during the pandemic, one of the strengths of the community and being able to support businesses that we have here, particularly the small independent businesses, is the amount of local support. People in Brookline make the effort to patronize the businesses in Coolidge Corner, Brookline Village, Washington Square. I think that's why our small businesses fared so much better than places in Boston, because people who were at home all the time were making sure that they were still supporting their local, leaned into supporting their neighborhood businesses. That being said, we understand from our small business community that like majority of their customers come here from other places, whether it's Jamaica Plain or Wellesley. Like, people are commuting into Brookline in order to spend their money here at our businesses. So, some of those people are already familiar with the area, but I think, our ability to continue to have successful, thriving commercial areas is to constantly be pulling in new people and new customers, and growing that customer base. So I think that would certainly be a target audience. I think another audience would be, in thinking about the recommendations from the Coolidge Corner parking study, the conclusion that sort of were drawn from that is that there is an adequate parking supply in Coolidge Corner. It's not being utilized efficiently. And if we want to, avoid expensive investments in building or, requiring additional parking or creating new public parking, we have to manage what we have better. And so a couple of ideas that we're going to keep working on would be, is there the opportunity to better utilize the public parking that's available at the Marriott Courtyard Garage, which is underutilized, in order to shift some of the parking and open up capacity in the Center Street East and West lots? And then could you move the Center Street West, which is currently limited to merchant parking for the majority of the week, to another area in town, or maybe to the Marriott Courtyard? Again, this is all like an idea that we need to, there's a lot to think through in moving these pieces around, but that would certainly be very helpful in creating additional capacity and making it easier and more enjoyable for people to come to Coolidge Corner, as a specific example. If you're going to do that, it's going to require thoughtful, successful signage to tell people who have been coming to Coolidge Corner all their lives that there are additional parking resources available and where they can find them. So that is just another example of a more familiar audience, but a stakeholder group that we would also be designing the signage for.
Do you have just off the top of your head the small businesses who reported that people are coming from outside of Brookline, from Wellesley or JP or wherever, to their stores or their shops, besides Booksmith and the Coolidge Corner Theater?
Sure. So, I'd say the best organized merchant organization is the Coolidge Corner Merchants Association. So a lot of that feedback would be from Fire Opal and Eureka Puzzles. Paris Creperie would be another very active member of that we're in communication with fairly often. And a lot of the, what's the children's store? Tiny Hanger. Those would be examples of people that, like, a majority of their customers are coming here by car in order to patronize their businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Meredith, is there anything from EDAB about this project? Have they voted on it or have some letter of support that can contextualize why this is important. I think that, I think what I'm hearing, that there's a lot of questions about this and a need for some education about where the genesis of this program. I mean, it says phase 2. People don't remember. I didn't remember. I have a bad memory what phase 1 was. So even after we vote on it today, whenever it is that you're coming before the full advisory, and I don't know when that would be, Carla, I think or maybe we'll say we aren't going to vote on this today. I think some more background information would be useful, and a little bit more of a structured presentation talking about what the priorities are for this money and how it's going to be spent. I mean, if you said to me, we don't know where we're putting the signage right away, but we're working on coming up with uniform standards across town, and over the next 10 years, this is how we'd like to be, implementing them for this type of signs. But what I'm hearing is there's a lot of work in progress still for the money, and I think that's why you're getting a little pushback as to whether or not this should be a priority at this time.
Carol, I've got planning slotted in for March 24th, but that is yet to be confirmed.
Okay.
Carol, I just wanted to say one last thing, because
can I just finish my comment and then you can?
Sure.
Good. Okay. And then the other thing I heard you mention is that the town is getting ready to redo the SUFA contract or put out an RFP. I can't remember if you mentioned or Carlos mentioned, there is a lot of clutter on our public way. And even when I was on EDAB, I was asking, could we come up with a uniform pricing system, whether it be for our parking spaces, our restaurant sheds, the SUFAs, so we are maximizing our ability to generate revenue consistently out of these things. And I'm hoping that if you brought up SUFA in conjunction with wayfinding, I'd hope that there would be a more holistic consideration of what we want our sidewalks and our streets to be looking at before we start spending money on new wayfinding signage. Okay, Carlos.
Yeah, and again, Meredith, I mean, what you're talking about is it's very exciting. I mean, the way, and now with technology, it's actually become even more exciting because, for example, when you talk about parking and availability of parking, the last thing you want to do is reach your parking destination and realize it's full, right? And so then then there's a sign that says, okay, parking that way, and then you realize it's full too. So like, for example, in Madrid, throughout the city, so there are all these garages and all these parking areas and all that stuff. So throughout the city, they have these, what they call them sort of like parking parking displays or whatever it is, but it's actually wayfinding for parking, and it tells you how, if it's full or not. Like, it tells you how many spaces are available. So it lists the parking area, and then it tells you how many spaces are available in that space, in that area, so that you don't trek across the city and then realize it's all full. And so that, to me, again, it's a lot more expensive, but that to me would seem a lot more useful for not only the visitors, but for the everyday person. And if you want to incentivize, parking on John Street or Pleasant Street instead of parking on Center Street, and we've been talking about these meters that know if there's a space open or not open. There really is the possibility of saying, maybe at the entrance, maybe somewhere on Beacon Street before you get into, like, Beacon and St. Paul's or something, saying Center Street is full, St. John or John Street or Pleasant is empty. go park there. And I mean, it's happening in other places. So I would prefer that we looked at some things that were more interactive and useful right now, than static signs that again are more I guess we don't have museums. We know where we do have a sign for the JFK Park, but it's different from other places where they have lots of museums and things, and tourists, and they need to find out where the Louvre or the Prado Museum or any of these things are. So that's just my two thoughts. But it's really exciting to see what's out there with the technology that's available and how it can be dynamic.
Okay, Harry, do you have another question, or is your hand up from before?
No, it's a comment, but if
Okay.
we're not gonna vote, I can delay it.
Well, how do people feel about voting?
I mean, I don't understand this voting at the end business when there are 50 gillion things in the CIP.
Well, remember last year we reallocated money among different categories in the CIP?
We can
Well,
still
we
do
always have the
that.
option
We
to
can still do that, right? That's like we voted for the fire department, but it doesn't mean we can't change our mind later.
Right.
So
If we're voting, then I'll
Yeah.
throw in my 2 cents. I'm not going to take the New England view. If you don't know where you are and how to get there, you shouldn't be here. And Meredith, I appreciate your very strong defense of what I'm viewing as the indefensible, but I take your points, and I think they're good points. But to me, given all the needs that the town has, I'd rather put this money into the streets so that people who drive from JP and Newton and Wellesley can actually get here without, causing a flat tire on their car. I am really not a fan of the branding issue. I think, frankly, that's a waste of time and money. But I'm going to go along with Carlos and Pam. I think given the town's needs, this is an interesting project, and I think what Carlos suggested about being able to find parking through some kind of interactive system actually sounds rather exciting. But for I think what we're looking at now, this is something I would not at this point in time be prepared to support. Thank you.
I'm going to make the following suggestion, since it seems like we have a lot of hesitation. Meredith, get us something from EDAB and come back to us at the end of the month with something a little bit clearer as far as how you would stage a project and what your priorities are going to be. And we'll see if, with some more clarity as to what you're going to use it for, we can get some more support. Does that sound fair to the committee? Would you mind hearing more detail or later?
Fine with me.
Jessica?
Yes, just to clarify too, and I'll provide plenty of documentation and things in the full plan for the next meeting. However, just wanted, and I'll share this with you too, but just to clarify some of the questions with the parking, being able to have that technological version of it where it tells you where the parking spots are, that is something we're considering in the conversations with one of the consultants that does the wayfinding process, and with transportation. It sounds like there's going to be a lot more money involved. Transportation has tested some of the monitoring systems within the pavement to test whether or not there's actually a car physically in the spot. But given that we're in New England, there's been some weather issues with them. So that we are still looking at the technology piece of it to try to do more than just a static signage. But that's something that the planning phase will tell us. And initially we were anticipating that we'd be in that phase already this year. But because we didn't get the one-stop funding, we weren't able to get started right away. But because we did apply for that funding last year, I do actually have a number of different letters of support from various boards and committees, which does include EDAB, SBDC, the Transportation Board, the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, who shared the concerns of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee specifically, and the Shared Mobility Group very much emphasized the need to eliminate the number of signs that we have up, as well as to eliminate any need to put in new posts of any kind, because we already have too much clutter. So while the wayfinding planning phase doesn't necessarily do every sign across town or across the commercial area, if there are signs in locations that we'd be looking at to do the wayfinding, they would tell us, you can consolidate all of this, or they take photos as well to say, these are all the signs that are in this one spot. This can probably be better utilized in a different way, consolidate
Okay.
X, Y, and Z.
So Jessica and Meredith, why don't you get in contact with me as to, why don't you put together a sample package for us, including how much you're going to be spending on consultants, and give us more clarity, and we'll schedule you for later in March or the first week in April kind of thing. Okay?
But Carol,
What?
I also don't want to lead them, I don't want them to do more work if we don't think that this is the right year. I mean, I'm sure that the pedestrian mobility committee would, if it was like $100,000 for fixing the sidewalks or doing this, they would probably prefer the sidewalks.
I guess what
this
my
year.
suspicion is, Carlos, there is more thought behind this than we're sort of getting tonight.
Oh, there's tons of thought.
Yeah, Carol, I agree. I would like to tell you,
and
I agree with Carlos.
I'm not-
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not doubting that at all. I just think that, and I know, I mean, I know how much work it is to do this. That's why I just don't want to make them do more work if it's
Okay.
not something that
what I'm
we
hearing is
really we're going to support.
it's not a shortcoming of what was communicated this evening. It's really just the subject.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was a great presentation of what they're planning to do.
All right. So maybe we should take a straw poll here. All right. How many people would like to do a vote tonight of the committee? Just raise your hand. Well, I guess some of you have your things off.
I
Carlos?
will. I'll put my picture on.
Okay. So I have Harry Friedman, Harry, Michael, Pam. Carlos, you'd like to do a vote tonight? Anthony and John are.
I'm
right
okay
now.
waiting, but
Me
John,
too.
do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to wait. I don't. This is not really. I think Carlos and Pam and others have cited that this is, a low priority item, a nice to have, maybe even, and maybe we should be looking at newer technologies and that kind of more comprehensive view of this. And so I think that it's just not ready. This particular item, anyway.
Okay. So it sounds like we should take a vote tonight. So does someone want to move this? And if you don't want to support it, you're going to vote no.
So I'll move, what is it, 100,000
It's 100,000.
for the wayfinding phase 2, for, in the CIP for FY27.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Michael,
Unfortunately, at this time, no.
Carlos,
No, not this time. Sorry.
Harry,
No.
Pam,
No, I'm very sorry. I would have, it was very nice to learn about it, but it's not a priority by a long shot for me right now.
John,
No.
Anthony.
no.
I'm going to abstain. I can't vote no as a former EDAC member. All right, so this fails by a vote of, I guess, 5-1.
No, I think it was
6-1.
0-1.
6-1.
to
Good thing we have a
0 to 1.
transcript. All right, sorry, Meredith and Jessica. Thanks for your
No,
time.
it's 6-0 to 1.
Yeah,
You're
or
abstaining,
0 to
6 to
6
0
to
to
1.
Right, thank you. And I think but I think my comment about having a more holistic way of addressing the issues and concerns, or what it's going to take in times of, tight funds to get this up. And I think you're right. There is an importance to let the small business community know that they're supported. So, okay.
Carol,
appreciate
can
your
I,
time.
can I
Thank you.
just make a comment on that last comment? I
Sure.
have been a scold at town meeting about supporting the small business community as we outlaw foie gras, outlaw the sale of tobacco, make it impossible for these small businesses to do business in the town of Brookline. And town meeting has consistently ignored anything that I or other pro-business people have said. And I would love to see town government do more in that area despite what's happened at town meeting, because town meeting has been a real block on any small business trying to do business here. There are always other concerns, green, environmental, health, God knows what, that trump the needs of the small business community.
Thank you.
Hey, Harry, don't forget the black takeout containers.
Yes, the black takeout containers,
All right. We could go on forever. All right. So thank you both again.
Thank you for your time.
And now the last thing on our agenda tonight is, it is the, what is it called? It's technology infrastructure line item. Is that what it is? Technology
Yes,
infrastructure
technology
for $100,000.
infrastructure.
And Feng is here. Thank you for joining us tonight. And would you be able to tell us about this project, please?
Sure. Hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry that I don't have my video turned on because I'm in the car. So my apology. Yeah, definitely. I can talk about this project. So as you all know, more and more systems are migrating to the cloud, and we have been taking a very cautious, methodical approach. So this ask of FY27, the $100,000 is the start of migrating our file share to the cloud. And we need to first address security, data loss, and basically items, and be prepared to migrate the entire file share to the cloud in FY28. So that's what the project is. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have questions? So why don't I try? So basically this, if I understood you correctly, software that's currently resident on our systems, this money is necessary in order to migrate it to the cloud. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes. So it's we use Office 365. We have some OneDrive licenses users, and people can share files, right? So the collaboration tools that people really are asking for, but we don't have those licenses for all users, all town users. So we've been very cautious. We're very careful about the actual need and the license, the cost of it. So we're currently doing for our Brookline.gov email, we are using an a la carte model, which is, for people who only need email, we're giving them email license. But for people who use files like OneDrive, for instance, that she had to collaborate with you guys. So
okay.
Users would have a different license. So, but we are, but over
okay, so
are on-prem. So we're migrating the file share to the cloud environment.
So Fang, what I don't understand is if it's a license, this is not a one and done. So why is this CIP instead of operating?
It will need to be worked into the operating budget on the first project to migrate it. I think that is, that is migrating our on-prem, the on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. So I would think that is a cloud infrastructure, if you will. The building is the storage infrastructure in the cloud compared to on-prem. So I think that is a CIP project.
Okay, I'm having a hard time understanding. It's not a great connection. So maybe that's part of it.
My apology.
So,
Yeah.
so you're telling me, so what you're telling us is there is actual hardware that is necessary in order for us to migrate to the cloud. Is that correct?
Right. So this what this would do is also will enable our next refreshment cycle of our on-prem infrastructure. We can reduce some of that capacity going forward. So some of the storage infrastructure will be in the cloud environment. And my apology for my connection. I had to go to a hospital for so I'm on the road. So apology if it's not very clear.
That's okay. Harry, you had a question?
I do have a question, and it's either for Fong or for Melissa. The item in the CIP is 100,000 this year, but it's 280 next year, and then it drops to 0, and then it goes to 250, and then it drops to 0, and then it goes to 150. So I'm wondering why the variation.
Okay,
so
there you go.
go ahead, Melissa. Do you want me to go? Okay.
Let me just start with the history of this line item, and then you can chime in with what your specific projects are, because I think this has been a line item that's been in the CIP for many years, and it's essentially, if there's funding available, the IT department develops a project around it, and a lot of times prior to the movement to the cloud, we were buying servers and switches and IT infrastructure, and that is now flipping now that there's a movement to the cloud. The out years funding in the CIP is acknowledging that we have infrastructure that we have built for the Zoom environment. We've got the D10s in the first floor rooms and other pieces of equipment that at some point need to be refreshed. So that's what the out year appropriations for. Fung, I don't know if you want to talk about fiscal 28.
Sure. So fiscal 28 will be the complete migration of the departmental file shares to the cloud environment. So that's what the cost is, the estimated cost is. And we have been trying to consolidate our systems so that we can, trying to seek the maximum, savings. So we're in the process of comparing, Google Cloud or, Office 365. So, but we were hoping that consolidating to Google, for instance, could save us money, but that really what isn't the case. It's the cost for Microsoft or Google are pretty much the same. So the FY28 is that effort to completely migrate file shares to the cloud, so the departmental shares. So we don't have that so we would reduce our on-prem infrastructure. And then the FY30, as Melissa mentioned, it's gonna be, it's our on-prem infrastructure storage gonna need to be replaced. I don't know if you recall back in, during COVID, thanks to all of you, the Opera Fund really helped us refresh our data center infrastructure, our storage infrastructure, our backups, and then some of that storage, so all of that will need to be replaced in the outer year, and after we finish migrating a portion of it to the cloud, then that infrastructure will reduce a little bit.
Okay.
Does it answer your question?
Yes,
Harry?
it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Carlos?
Yes. Juan, do you right now the meeting, all the meeting the meeting recordings, those are all kept where? Are they kept on town's cloud services?
Yeah, so those recordings are kept in Zoom Gov. We have unlimited storage there for the Zoom meeting recordings. Yeah, but as Melissa mentioned, Zoom is currently funded ARPA fund through FY28, I believe. So we will need to figure out after that, what we do with it.
Okay, and are some of those also stored on the YouTube channel? I guess it would be the big YouTube channel.
Yep, any meetings that Big has broadcasted and they have recorded, they are stored in their YouTube channels, and we have some published on the town website, and those are on the Civic Plus platform.
Okay, so with the new MOA that is coming up with Big, which I guess expires this May, is there a thought to transfer those back to the town, or is Big still going to be maintaining those, and if is there capacity?
I am not sure. I don't. If it's the same meeting, if the recording is from Zoom, then I don't see the reason why it needs to be transferred back. So I think I would need to. Yeah.
Yeah, we still
I
have
haven't
the
been
original
copied.
recording. Big is just getting a copy and putting a copy of the recording on the Zoom channel, on the YouTube channel.
Okay, but that's and is that is for the public service, or is that for? Because I know we have to have them available, right, by law.
Right. So everything's stored on Zoom.gov. So if the YouTube channel went away, we still have the recordings on Zoom.gov.
Okay, but how would they be available to people to look at them?
I think that would be a question on the town's overall strategy for providing recordings of public meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Pam?
Okay, I mean, it looks like to me, this is something we have to do. And all of us who have computers or phones, we're always having to upgrade them and things change all the time. I think that to vote on this, it would be really interesting to ask the question, what would happen if you didn't get this money? I'm not saying that I'm not going to support it. I'm just would like to know without it, how would that not compromise the town, but affect the whole services from your department and the needs of our town?
It will be quite well. It's critical to be able to do all of this, as you mentioned, right? So we're talking about our infrastructure, our computing infrastructure. So so if we don't do this in FY28, FY27, then we are going to see the replacement of our existing on-prem infrastructure to be much higher. And also we can't meet the demand of users who want to collaborate, want to share information, and also I think a lot of the in terms of a lot of the data, security, data loss protection, and all of that, and take advantage of what's down the road, the AI functions when it's vetted and secure and ready to be used. So we're not going to be able to take advantage of those.
Okay.
This is fundamental infrastructure, whether or not it's on-prem or in the cloud these days. there's no difference. In the cloud, it's very expensive. That's why we're taking very methodical approach. We're in FY27, we're going to be looking at all of our on-prem file shares, and we're going to see, what files should we migrate, what files we don't need to, we can archive. That way we can save money, because cloud storage is expensive, as we all know. But that is where everybody is for private industry, that's where they're at. For a lot of public sectors, we're all migrating that way. And there are a lot of towns like Framingham, Concord, Cambridge, they're all already on that cloud platform. But we're doing it a lot more cost effectively, because I don't agree to migrate everything, like everything into a G3, G5 environment, which is a lot of money. A lot of towns have done that, but then the usage it varies, depends on the users, and also there's a lot of data loss protection, security, archiving, retention that we really should. A data classification, we really should do some of that hard work ahead of time before we migrate. That way we are being, thoughtful and methodical about this. Yeah.
Sounds like you've thought about this in protecting our town to not waste any money, but do what's necessary. So I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank, does this also, I assume, benefit the schools?
The schools are in the Google environment, Carol. So that's why we at the very beginning we started by we're looking at, should we consolidate to one platform? It's easier to support. It turns out that we really can't be in the same environment. We have it's basically, even if we migrate to Google, it would have been a separate instance or separate tenant. And also, it doesn't save us money. We originally were trying to, we're saying, oh, well, the education price is very different than how it works in the real world. So, so for us, the cost is still pretty much the same. But if there's no cost savings to consolidate all to Google, then there are a lot of other considerations. For instance, town users are used to Microsoft environment, so there's going to be a huge hurdle to migrate to Google. But also there are other programs that are more native to Microsoft environment. So we're still going through that. My team is still going through all the comparison and then see what makes the most sense. But as far as cost goes, it really basically it's about the same. And also there are things we should take into consideration, which is, I don't know if you have heard, not long ago, there's that big AWS Amazon outage that brought a lot of company into a standstill. So do we really want to put all of our eggs in one basket, or should we just actually have some diversity? So still keep the Microsoft for town or Google for schools. So those are the big questions we're working through.
I wasn't asking, I don't have an opinion. I was just wondering if there is how broadly, what percentage of our needs this was covering. Are we going to have some similar expenses related to school infrastructure that they're going to be coming to you're going to be coming to the CIP for in the future?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood you. Understood you. So no, this is only for the town site.
Thank you.
And yeah.
But do you think something similar is going to be coming down the road that we're going to have to spend more money on for the schools?
No, because the school is already in Google, in the Google Cloud.
Okay.
So yeah, we won't be having that need. There are needs for replacing switches, network infrastructure that was delayed, and there were a lot of budget cuts on the school side in the past few years. But there isn't a need for the cloud migration on the school side.
And are the hardware costs or technology infrastructure for the schools in the PSB budget, or do they come into our CIP budget?
So the network equipment, devices, they are all in the school IT budget, in the school budget.
Great, thank you. Okay, anyone else have any questions? All right, would someone like to move this $100,000?
I'll move $100,000 for technology infrastructure for the CIP for FY27.
I'll second.
Okay. Carlos,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
and Michael's left, so it's left to me, and I say yes too.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Carol. I apologize for my the connection is not so good.
You're better now. I can hear you better now, but thank you so much
Okay.
for making the time this evening.
Thank you all.
Okay, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Our next meeting is the 9th with DPW. And we are going to start with administration, engineering, and highways is what the plan is. And then on the 11th, we'll finish up with sanitation, water, and sewer. And we'll do each department's CIP or each division's CIP when we do their operating budget.
So Carol, we still have sanitation and that we don't have sanitation?
It's a totally different thing, Carlos.
It's a CIP.
The CIP, we'll talk
Portion
about
of
the
it.
sanitation operating budget and CIP budget at the same time.
Yeah, the transfer station's on there, Carlos.
Yeah. Great.
And the only day we don't have a meeting is the 16th, because it's my mother's 104th birthday and I won't be here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, really.
How is she?
She's doing okay. I thought she was gonna be leaving us soon in January, but she's changed her mind. She's not ready to go anywhere. So anyways, so that's what we have planned. And the only thing that we're adding to the schedule, and I don't have a clear date, is I never scheduled the CPA, Community Preservation Act, funds, and I'm waiting to hear from Nancy Heller and David Lescoyer about April 6th or April 8th. And the PSB, the public schools, someone from the public schools, probably Mariah, will come when the building department comes, and we'll talk about the mini CIP then. And then they will come back at some other point to talk about the classroom capacity leases, which, is always one of our favorite topics. So unless anyone has anything else, I will conclude the meeting then.
Thank you very
everybody.
much for keeping us
All right,
organized.
thank you
Carol.
all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.